Jan's been waving her hand first. Go ahead.
Oh, Jan, so I have to switch. Jan, go ahead.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, I've been in communication with people who are living in residential neighborhoods who were not given any notice at all about this plan, and were very surprised to see their streets just appearing on this plan without any knowledge. Maybe there are people who are not on email lists. They're not tracking everything the city does. They haven't gone to these meetings. So I'm just going to start with Flora. I was out there walking around Flora, Fixellini, through the by the probation department, Bishop Street Studios, and with that proposed bike path. I've been working with people on Flora and Fixellini for years in terms of trying to prevent cut-through traffic, traffic cutting through the neighborhood. That's why we have these signs, and that's why Johnson was prioritized as a bike path. So how did the idea of putting a bike path on Flora and Fixellini, how did that even occur to anybody? Where did that come from? It didn't come from the residents. And my concern about this is I don't want to see any repeat of what happened with the Anholm Greenway. I don't want to see other neighborhoods feeling that they've been run roughshod by bicycle advocates without any input from them. So let's just start with Flora. How did the Flora Fixellini idea come about?
Sure, I can take that. Fill in the gaps if I miss anything, Adam. But the Flora Neighborhood Greenway is not a new project to this plan. It's a carryover from the existing bicycle plan, where we had initially used the term bicycle boulevard. The city since used the term greenway because bicycle boulevards include pedestrian improvements, traffic calming, and things that aren't exclusive to bicyclists. So this project does not extend any new vehicular connections to increase cut-through traffic. In fact, it retains the recommendation from the current bike plan, which is to look at filling that gap that exists on Flora near the county's offices with a pedestrian and bicycle-only pathway that would connect that gap. So you'd have continuity for people walking and biking through on that whole stretch parallel to Johnson, but wouldn't be increasing traffic for drivers. And as Adam had touched on earlier too, is the Anholm Greenway was a unique circumstance that we had routes that were identified for a greenway that had really high existing traffic volumes. If you look at the current plan, the remaining greenways that are in the plan are on streets that are really already low traffic streets, and other than potential for some minor traffic calming measures, if the speeds are higher than ideal, these greenways would look like additional signage, markings, maybe some green street elements and landscaping to make them really great places to walk and bike, but they wouldn't be looking at things that would require wholesale parking or significant traffic diversion or things like that. The rest of the streets that are identified for greenways are already pretty low traffic streets. They just need some things to clarify them visually and to guide users to know, hey, these are great streets to walk on. They connect to where I'm trying to go. So that's the general question on the Flora Greenway, and that would apply to the other greenways that are in the plan. At the higher level too, about, did individual neighborhoods get noticed? For a programmatic plan like this, much like a general plan or something that affects the whole city, it's not feasible for us to send postcard mailers to every single address, but we've tried to get the word out and meet people where they're already at as much as we can. Like Adam mentioned, pop-ups on the weekends where people are doing their business at their favorite sandwich shops or coffee shops or downtown at Farmers Market. Also had a lot of articles in the local newspapers and media communicating that this plan was in process and that there were public outreach opportunities available, as well as an online forum and different mediums to kind of spread a shotgun approach to get the word out as much as we can. And as we'd mentioned before, too, approval of the plan doesn't greenlight any specific project from this point on. As we prioritize individual projects, we would be doing more focused outreach just on, the neighborhoods that are in the vicinity to make sure that they are aware of what's going on. And that could include things like direct postcard mailers, the same kind of online medium that we've been using, but also things like sandwich boards, where if you're walking through your neighborhood, you'll see something advertising that there's an upcoming opportunity for that. So, and as Adam had touched on too, just like with our current bike plan, there's projects that started with kind of a general outline of what something would look like. And as we got into more detailed analysis and community engagement, the final outcome might differ and lead to, amendments to the plan over time as we get more focused design and planning and input from the neighborhoods on each individual project. So there's still plenty of opportunity to guide specific project designs as we move forward over the next several decades with implementing the plan. So we've tried the best we can to date to get the word out as much as we can, but there will be more outreach and focused communications and engagement with the neighborhoods over time.
So here's another question. If the neighborhood did not want to have a bike path there, would just eliminating that from the plan also be an option? Or does the adoption of the plan tonight mean that there is going to be a bike path there, but neighbors and residents, homeowners who live there would be able to kind of say, oh, we don't want green paint, we want blue paint, or, move the deck chairs away around on the Titanic type of thing? I mean, could a bike path just be eliminated in the residential area if that's what the residents wanted?
Certainly, and that's happened with other projects that were in our current bike plan. As referenced earlier, there's been a long time. There's been plans for a pedestrian crossing, a bridge at Montalban, north of the downtown, connecting the Santa Rosa corridor with the Ann-Home neighborhood. That project was in the plan, and when we got to more detailed planning and outreach, the neighborhood said, "Hey, we have concerns about this," and then ultimately the council had the authority to say, "You know what? Let's scrap this specific project," and that could be an outcome that the council decides on individual projects that are in this plan at this point moving forward. So that does happen. The council still has. I just say the council still has the discretion to approve final designs and implementation of any of these projects. So this isn't the last time you'll see these particular planning proposals.
Okay, thank you. I also had a question about Tier 1. How much of the projected money in Tier 1 is to be applied to improving sidewalks? Or is it all for bicycle paths?
No. So the Tier 1 priority list includes several shared use paths for pedestrians and bicyclists, several prioritized crossings that serve bicyclists and pedestrians, and some of them only pedestrians. And then a lot of these corridors include features that would upgrade sidewalks and curb ramps as part of the overall project. So those are the kind of individual crossings and corridors in the Tier 1 network. On top of that, as Adam had mentioned too, we have kind of a prioritization methodology for completing all of the other sidewalk and curb ramp gaps that we have in a city. If you added all those up, there'd be thousands of curb ramps and street lights and many 100 miles of sidewalks. Those total costs, I think, are captured in many ways in the total estimates, but they'd be obligations that we take care of over decades to build. So I'd say we haven't explicitly broken out the costs strictly to pedestrian or bicyclists because a lot of the projects have features that serve both. But sidewalks, curb ramps, street lighting is a huge part of the total project cost that would be considered within this plan.
Okay, and I just have one more question. I live near Cal Poly, and there's a real problem with not having sidewalks in our neighborhood. The streets are full of students walking to Cal Poly or from Cal Poly, skateboards, electric bikes, cars, you name it, and bicycles. So are there any plans to improve the lighting or the sidewalk situation near the university.
Yes. And in that kind of prioritization heat map that Adam showed, those are prioritized based on proximity to things like schools, the university, areas where we've had collision issues or high demand. And so, yes, the areas around Cal Poly would be within that prioritization process where we'd be looking to put in streetlights, curb ramps, sidewalks in those areas first. And we also kind of, we already have an ongoing streetlight program that was funded a couple of years ago by the council that we can incrementally are already installing new streetlights, and a lot of the requests we get and installations that we're working on are near Cal Poly. They can be costly. An individual streetlight per our standard with new PG&E can be upwards of close to $30,000. So we've been looking at ways using solar and other options that can reduce those costs. But yeah, the Cal Poly neighborhood's part of that focus area that would be getting more attention for things like that.
Thank you very much. That's all I have.